Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is Sunday, but it is Easter Sunday. So if you're wondering why you are seeing me today, it's because I wrote a Easter Sunday segment. I don't want to say it's an Easter Sunday special because there's nothing special about these. These are horrible events, but that's essentially what this is. This is a murder that happened on Easter Sunday in my hometown. So let's get into it. It's bad though, because kids die and all kinds of things, so it is definitely gonna need a trigger warning because it's bad. That being said, let's get into it. The Easter Sunday massacre occurred on Easter Sunday, March 30th, 1975, when 41-year-old James Rupert fatally shot 11 members of his own family in his mother's house at 635 Minor Avenue in Hamilton, Ohio. Rupert was tried and found guilty on 2 counts of aggravated murder, but not guilty on the other 9 counts by reason of insanity. I don't know how you can be sane for 2 and not sane for 9 others, but here we are. He received 2 life sentences to be served consecutively at Allen Correctional Institution in Lima and the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville. He was moved to Franklin Medical Center in Columbus in 2009 because of his declining health. Rupert died from natural causes on June 4th, 2022, while incarcerated at the Franklin Medical Center. He was 88 years old at the time of his death. So he lived his whole life in prison, essentially. But yeah, you think about it, he didn't die that long ago. James Urban Rupert was reported to have had a troubled life. His mother, Charity, had told him that she would have preferred to have a daughter as her second child. His father, Leonard, also had a violent temper and held little affection for his 2 sons. Leonard died in 1946 from tuberculosis at the age of 37, when James and his brother Leonard Jr. were ages 12 and 14. Leonard Jr. became the father figure of the family and constantly picked on James during their upbringing, not unusual for siblings, often taunting him. At 16, James was so dissatisfied with his home life that he ran away and attempted to commit suicide by hanging himself with a sheet. He was unsuccessful and returned home. It's sad to think, though, that if he hadn't been unsuccessful, there would be 11 people still alive. Just saying. As an adult, Rupert was 5'6" tall and weighed 135 pounds. He was described as modest, bookish, and a helpful man who was unremarkable and quiet and had no police record. By 1975, Rupert was envious of his older brother's successful job and family. Rupert himself had dropped out of college after 2 years, then trained as a draftsman, although by 1975 he was unemployed, was unmarried, and was still living at home with his mother. In contrast, his older brother Leonard Jr. had earned a degree in electrical engineering, had married one of the few girlfriends James had ever had. So, married his brother's ex-girlfriend. Yeah. I can kind of understand some frustration there, but not enough to do what he ended up doing. Owned his own home in the city of Fairfield and had 8 children. Charity was frustrated with James' inability to hold a steady job and his constant drinking. She had threatened to evict him from her home on more than one occasion. James also owed his mother and brother money, having lost much of what little cash he had in the 1973-1974 stock market crash, which was not uncommon from what I understand about that time because I wasn't alive then. That a lot of people lost money in that crash, which makes sense. People usually do lose a lot of money when the stock market crashes. It's all about investments, and bad investments can be detrimental, and good investments can turn into bad investments. It's just a whole thing. A month before the massacre, James inquired about silencers for his weapons while purchasing ammunition. His behavior deteriorated, caused by a deep depression as he neared the breaking point. On March 29, 1975, witnesses had seen him engaging in target practice, shooting tin cans with his .22 caliber pistol and rifle along the banks of the Great Miami River in Hamilton, which was not uncommon. They don't really allow it now because, you know, safety, and people walk along the banks and there's paths and stuff now, but back then it was not uncommon. The night before the murders, James went out, as he did nearly every night, at the 19th Hole Cocktail Lounge. He talked with an employee, 28-year-old Wanda Bishop. She would later state that James told her he was frustrated with his mother's demands on him and his impending eviction, and that, quote, he needed to solve the problem, end quote. According to Bishop, Rupert stated that his mother had complained that if he could afford to buy beer 7 nights a week, he could afford to pay the rent. I mean, she's not wrong. Rupert left the bar at 11 p.m. that night and later returned. When Bishop asked him if he had solved the problem, he replied, "No, not yet." James stayed at the bar until it closed at 2:30 a.m. On Easter Sunday, March 30th, 1975, Rupert's brother Leonard Jr. and his wife, Alma, brought their 8 children ranging in age from 4 to 17 for Easter dinner at their house located at 635 Minor Avenue. Rupert stayed upstairs, sleeping off a night of drinking, while the other family members participated in an Easter egg hunt on the front lawn. At around 4 p.m., James woke up, loaded a .357 Magnum, 2 .22 caliber handguns, and a .22 caliber rifle, then went downstairs. Charity, which remembers the mother, was preparing sloppy joes in the kitchen in the company of Leonard Jr. and Alma, the brother and his wife. Most of the children were playing in the living room. He killed Leonard Jr. when he shot him in the head in the kitchen. Then he shot his sister-in-law, Alma. Then, as his mother lunged at him, he shot her once in the head and twice in the chest. He then killed David, Teresa, and Carol. James turned the corner into the living room, and one by one, James shot his remaining niece and nephews, Anne, Leonard III, Michael, Thomas, and John. Charity had been shot once in the chest. The remaining victims were shot in the head and shot again to ensure that they had died. Which I don't know why they say that Charity had only been shot once, because it says that he shot her once in the head and then twice in the chest. So she actually was shot 3 times. So she would have received the most shots, is what I'm understanding. So I don't know why in 2 different places it states 2 different things, but I'm under the impression from everything that I've read that it was once in the head, twice in the chest, and then everybody else was shot once in the head and once in the chest, is what I think. So that's what I'm sticking to, because I'm going with this. The only sign of a struggle at the crime scene was one overturned waste paper bin, which, if you don't know, is like these trash cans are like this big. There was no time for anybody to react, from what I understand. The only one that had any inclination to react was the mother, was Charity. The children were unaware of what was going on. They didn't understand. They're young children. The brother and the sister-in-law were already dead, so there really wasn't a whole lot of time for anybody to react. I mean, it just went very fast, and it's very sad. The Butler County coroner theorized that Rupert had likely shot some victims more than once to prevent anyone escaping. And the massacre was over in less than 5 minutes. After spending 3 hours in the house, James finally called the police and said, quote, "There's been a shooting," end quote. He then waited just inside the front door for authorities to arrive. All told, Rupert fired 44 shots, 40 of which struck their targets. Victims included Charity Rupert, 65, the mother, Leonard Rupert Jr., the brother, 42, Alma Rupert, the sister-in-law, 38, Leonard Rupert III, 17, Michael Rupert, 16, Thomas Rupert, 15, Carol Rupert, 13, Anne Rupert, 12, David Rupert, 11, Teresa Rupert, 9, and John Rupert, 4. And those were all the nieces and nephews. The murder shocked the town of Hamilton, because shit like that doesn't happen in Ohio, especially in Hamilton. I mean, maybe now more, but not back then. It was never like that. Those who knew James did not think he was capable of violence, especially at the magnitude of this particular massacre. By all accounts, neighbors considered the Ruperts a nice family. James was arrested and charged that day with 11 counts of aggravated homicide. He refused to answer questions asked by the police and was very uncooperative. He made it clear he would plead insanity. Well, of course he would, because who's going to say, you know what, no, I was totally sane and I absolutely did it. County Prosecutor John Holcomb viewed the crime scene and stated that there was so much blood on the first floor it was dripping through the floorboards into the basement. Rupert had fired a total of 35 rounds and all 4 weapons, which again, this is what I'm saying. When you get into these old cases, you do get a lot of like backtrack, and then you kind of look at it later, or while you're in the middle of presenting it, and be like confused. Because some articles might have one thing, some articles might have another thing, and you don't realize it until you come out and say it. So it says he fired a total of 35 rounds. However, originally they said he fired 44 shots. So do with that what you will. And all 4 weapons were recovered at the scene. On the Easter of 1978, March 30th, at 4:30 a.m., the father of Alma Rupert and grandfather to the 8 of the victims committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. So this was 3 years later. It's devastating. Like, you've already, like, Easter's already ruined for this family because they've lost, you know, 8 grandkids and a child, but now it's also going to be the father is gone too, and that's sad. The original trial was held in Hamilton, Ohio in June of 1975. The 3-judge panel found Rupert guilty on 11 counts of murder and sentenced him to life in prison on July 3rd. A mistrial was declared because the 3-judge panel did not know if the ruling had to be unanimous or majority rule. It was decided that the retrial would be held in Findlay, 125 miles north, because it was believed he would not receive a fair trial in the city of Hamilton. It's a big city. It's not a big city. It's a big city. There's a decent population in Hamilton, but everybody pretty much knows everybody's business, and unfortunate. So they're probably not wrong that he would not have received a fair trial, especially with something that was so, like, on such a big scale, being, you know, that he murdered children and his family. You know, like, that's going to be something that everybody's heard about. It's going to be well publicized. It's going to be on everybody's mouth. Everybody's gonna have something to say about it. The second trial began on July 23rd, 1975, and prosecutors revealed evidence involving the witnesses who had seen Rupert engaging in target practice, asking about silencers for his gun collection, and admitting that his mother's expectations were a problem that he needed to solve. In July 1975, Rupert received 11 consecutive life sentences. On appeal, a new trial was granted in 1982. Defense attorney Hugh D. Holbrook, convinced his client was insane, personally funded the hiring of expert psychiatrists and psychologists from all over the country. During the second trial, one of the jurors collapsed and died from a heart attack after seeing pictures of the dead bodies. So we could just add that to his list of victims too, because I mean, now at this point, you have 8 kids, 3 adults, so 11 in total there. The father who killed himself because of this. And now the jury member that had a heart attack and died from just pictures. So he's got like a total of like 13 victims now. If you keep track like I would, he's got about 13 victims now. On July 23rd, 1982, another 3-judge panel found Robert guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, his mother and brother, but found him not guilty on the other 9 counts of murder by reason of insanity. He received 1 life sentence for each count to be served consecutively. Capital punishment had been suspended in the United States from 1972 to 1976 as a result of the Supreme Court's decision in Furman versus Georgia. The mass murders on Minor Avenue had occurred in 1975, and Rupert could not receive the death penalty for his crimes. On July 30, 1982, at the age of 48, Rupert was incarcerated with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction at the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. His assigned inmate number was A169321. In June 1995, at the age of 6, Rupert was granted a hearing before the state parole board, but his release was denied. He received subsequent parole board hearings in 2005 at the age of 71 and April 2015 at the age of 81, both of which he was denied release, and honestly, should have been. In 2015, the Allen Oakwood Correctional Institution Parole Board released a statement. Quote, "The board has determined that the inmate is not suitable for release at this time. The inmate has not completed any recommended programming and does not appear to be willing to do so." So he could have gotten out if he would have just done the programming, but because he didn't want to do it, they were like, "Guess you're staying here then, bud." The inmate's record notes negative institutional conduct. The inmate took the lives of multiple victims. There have been strong community objections to his release. The release of this inmate would not be in the best interest of justice. Rupert's next parole consideration hearing was set to occur in April of 2025 when he would have been 91. On June 4th, 2022, at the age of 88, Rupert died from natural causes while incarcerated at the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, a unit of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. And that's the story for Easter Sunday. Yeah, I thought that was crazy, and like I just Googled like Easter, deaths or whatever, and I was very surprised to come across one that occurred in my hometown. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to share that with you guys because I have seen the graves of these people, and they are well kept, and they are very nice. It is unfortunate that, you know, all these people are dead now, but at least their graves are still being taken care of, despite the family obviously not really being around anymore. So that's good news. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Make good choices. Be cautiously kind to others. Happy Easter, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.